It's such a pleasure having you back here with us at the A4Q Testing Summit. This year is our sixth edition of our hybrid conference, strictly online this year. Today I have with me Seba from the SJSI, the Polish Testing Board, and he will be sharing with us about BDD in test automation. Seba, please tell us more about your very interesting topic today.
Thank you for having me here. And yeah, I will be talking about the next 30 minutes about this. And I hope something will be really interesting to you. But before we start, I would like to give big wishes to all the testers around the world because it's today is the International Testers Day. So from my perspective, I wish you happy hunting, people, and good communication with our lovely developers. And about the communication, there will be this talk. So, okay, let's start then. What the topics or what is the agenda for us today? So at first, I would like to start to a quick reminder to what is the BDD about. Then I will share with you my experience, then typical problems like we went up, and the conclusion. And I hope that there will be any takeaways that will be interesting to you. So let's start. Sorry, it's about me, but this is not important. If you just wanted to catch me, use LinkedIn. There is QR code. So helicopter view. So shift left concept. So probably all of you already know because this is very basics in our software development lifecycle. So we have the V model, which was invented many years ago. This was the initial phase of how we can, organize our process of life cycle. So how, in short, and how we can organize our development work in order from the concept, the idea to deliver it. And it is very, as you see, very easy, nice, and very well organized, well thought. So this is something that was doing, historically, and in the first project, which finished with the successful. But then people start to thinking about, okay, this is might takes too much time. Too much time. It costs us too much money. And what is happening if we discover some problem on the latest phases? So let's look at this and make it more, more agile or more optimization. But if this was very common to all, I would say that even that some of the contacts, some of the businesses thought about this optimization. Even nowadays, we still have some kind of some industry that are still using those middle. For example, aviation, automotive, generally transport. This model is still being heavily used. So there is still part of our software life that they stay and they work on this model and enhance a little bit this. But there are also some other businesses like that go for the agile. Agile, we know all that it should be more flexible, easy, quicker, and should allow us to deliver in point what exactly business expect from us. And we can do it for the for the other for example for selling or for commerce where there's no problem, there is no life critical stuff. And what was the concept of the agile? Except all those all those manifesto, there was identification that we need to improve our communication. So the people resign from the agile on the V model and go to the agile, having in thought that okay, we have better communication. But do we need to think that is it really solve our problems? From my experience, sometimes we end up exactly like on the picture. Like we should communicate, but still we have the kind of silence. So still we have a kind of product owner which deliver to us story. We have developers and we have testers, QAs, which we just catching the package of the software and throwing back the bag. So even that we try to do something with our lovely models, tune them, optimize them, we still have typical people's problem, like how to contact, how to communicate, and how to understand each other better. Also, if we look even on our CTFL4, one of the latest products released by the ISTQB, we can see that there is some sections about this, and at least one I would like to look twice on the because you probably already know this, but look again on the section called testing as a driver for the software testing. So there's also concept that the testing can be driver, how we can doing the software. And we can look on our daily activities in like this. So for example, when we come back to our V model and we look on the bottom of this V letter, there's a module and design, unit test, and decoding. And people who thinking, okay, how we can do it with the improving communication to being in sync and still, to deliver software in much quicker. So it means much cheaper. So this is the first step, if the in direction to thinking kind of out of box, how to optimize this. And there was one of the people proposed, okay, let's try to something which later we called test-driven development. So if it help, let's see, quick reminder what is about this TDD. So if we look on those three models, we can compare those to the three steps. It's much easier to work with the steps because this is more abstract, and we can apply this in different models. So we have the red, green, and the refactor state. So we have a cycle like we are doing our code of the test. This test initially fails, then we're doing the code of the product. The product is eventually it's fulfilling the requirements. So then we have those yellow part, and eventually the test is passing, is being green. So then again we look on our test and see, okay, is it that everything that the business expects from us, or this is the initial phase? And all the studies showing that even that initially our dear developers thought that, okay, I know how to solve the problem initially when I'm hearing of the requirements, but all studies proving that if we somehow force them to rethink the initial concept, that eventually we have the better code. And this model addresses this. Like we have the initial solution, which is usually is good, but the next solution is usually the better. So having that kind of cycle, we have kind of many factors like we discuss with we challenge the requirements on the one hand, and because we updating the test, we need to rethink the requirements, designing the test. Then we eventually deliver the code, the software, which is already rethink, and we already know how it will be tested. So at the very beginning, it looks like we have all the benefits. So we have eventually better code, better quality of the code of our product. We have also automated unit test, which we know that automation is, can be very costful part of the product. And as I mentioned, the studies show that between the 30 and the 50% of the defects comes from the misunderstanding of the requirements. So if we force our dear developers to thought about the requirements, there will be better understanding, because they don't implement very quickly, but they really think and start asking questions, a little bit challenging this concept. And there are also not always the bright side. So there is always the cons, like usually, especially at the very beginning when you're implementing TDD in our process, we have bigger estimation because the developers thought, okay, I could deliver the code of the product in first, half of the day, let's say 1 day, but now I need to do some tests. So probably my estimation will be kind of double. So initially, the developer a little bit afraid of this, and they even double the estimation. But also studies and shows that this is only the beginning effect. That very soon the developers realized that it's a much better solution, and they used to that kind of methodology. So the estimation eventually not increasing twice, increasing a little bit, but this is not as big as it needs to be observed and mitigate. The other thing is that badly designed the unit test. So when we have the badly designed unit test, then we have the problem, and this is the required kind of skills. So the developers needs to really either cooperate with the testers, which help them to design the test cases on even on the abstract level, but design in a better way, or you from pure technical engineering perspective, how to use the proper framework, how to mock the elements, what to test, what to not test. So this is the concept, and I would say a kind of risk that if it will be badly implemented unit test, they will not help, but they slow us down. So this is one of the risk in the anti-pattern in this methodology. But eventually, people value those methodology as very good and very useful, and was very happy. And this was the first step in the mind kind on the unknown. But then we start thinking, okay, we just took the three elements of our V model and proposed something which eventually by the data collected from the real project proved that it's working. So what else we can do? And then some of the people thought, okay, since we have the concept which is working, so let's try to do one more step, this time much bigger step. And let's try to not take the requirements which is already prepared on the module level, but the real from the very beginning on the business level. And that's we started discussing about the behavior-driven development. Fun fact is that in the very beginning, when I learned about this framework methodology, it was sold to my manager like this is business-driven development. Just to emphasize, this is the business drives this development, not anything else. But more popular is behavior-driven, and also this concept is very often it's is being used with the DDD, domain-driven design, which is probably one of the keyword that our architect and the developers is really keen about this. So we have our concept. So again, we have the model like requirements that need to be understood, design the test, and implemented code. And in the BDD, we have something like specification workshop or general workshop. We can call it meeting, kind of other option like Free Amigos, which comes from the Agile. But usually at the very beginning, we have kind of workshop. And the concept assumes that, okay, if we have the people like representing their own roles, like developers, business, testers, DevOps, security, depends on our concept of our project. Let's let's groom those people in the one room and let's allow them to discuss. And usually the first workshop looks like this, like on this picture, like we have the business which is telling that what we'd like to achieve, what kind of future will look like. Then we have the guy who is, very keen in developing, and he already knows how it will be implemented. He see this code, and also we have the person who is okay, how it should be tested, or how the database need to be structured. And as you might assume that having that kind of three different personality even in the one room, and even not allowing them to leave this room, it's not helping with the communication. So there is yet more research about how to make those people to really communicate. But before we'll go there, this is the goal that we would like to achieve, that even that people initially don't understand each other, and eventually through the different models, techniques, they try to understanding. This is something that we would like to achieve. So that business comes to us and say something about, then she in that case got the feedback like blah blah blah, technical rubbish that is doesn't understand her for her. But from this feedback she realized that, okay, so I thought about something which is not expressed vocally, so this is not was clearly defined, and this is the real gold benefit of that kind of model. So after this workshop, the business are able to define more precisely what they would like to achieve. But still, we have the problem with the communication to others. So again, different people, mainly not technical or from different scopes, and the solution. So in the BDD model, it was proposed or defined something like ambiguous language, so or domain language that was defined like this is the type of the language which is ambiguous. So which means that it's understand, document, and validate. So we propose some kind of protocol of the communication, or we start to communicate in a certain way that will address or deliver all those 3 points. So all people in the room will understand the first what we're talking about. Later, this language or the way of the communication will allow us to document. Someone will be able to write down what was expressed and how we agreed on this. And this way of the writing down, and we can say that freeze this moment of the common understanding, will be later used to validate. And what else next? So me personally, from very first moment when I hear about BDD, it was BDD. It's equal to Gherkin. So this was something that that I need to implement it, and as soon as I implement it, it will be mean that I understand and I work in BDD. But then I go to some kind of conference. By the way, I encourage you to go into the conference, to meet the people, to talking with the people. This one, it was really surprise to me because I, participated in some workshop, shift left using BDD. So I was, attending and signing to this workshop just thought, okay, eventually I will see how to solve my problem with the Gherkin syntax or whatever other unambiguous language, just to solve my problems, because I have many problems about this. And then we spent the whole day with the group, with the Eric and the Martin leadership, which, by the way, again, I recommend those trainers. And we spent the whole day. We worked really hard, but at the end of the day, we haven't write it down any single structure in the Gherkin. So after this workshop, I eventually realized that okay, and we are talking about the concept, and we are talking about the common understanding and documenting and validating. What type of the syntax we pick up later it really depends. Of course, there are kind of standards, like I already mentioned, Gherkin. When we have standards like this, like we have usually the old communication organized by the key three key different words like given, when, then. So we have given options when we specify what the usually business would like to achieve. We have when, so we have the preconditions, stuff like this, and then what is being achieved. So this is kind of specific language, which is very commonly used, and on all our workshops, it's being very used, but very common use. But again, the using the inefficient way means that we need to skill with this, because this is certain way of the communication that should help us with the understanding and addressing some problems. So this was kind of quick intro and kind of definition, like what is my understanding when I see the risk and see the problems. That having that kind of knowledge before those workshop, after the workshop, and generally in my career, I have many. I have few times the idea. Okay, let's try to implement this and let's do it in the proper way to have all the benefits. And what kind of problem I encounter in that kind of situation. So we can, let's say, group those problems or gather those problems or define them like in 3 sections. Always people. So yes, the people, and we are the one of the biggest challenges in our IT projects, because we have this different personality, we have different culture, we have different skill in the communication. Even those pictures from the beginning of my presentation showing you that the certain people like sales department will be communicating different way than the developers. And what is our typical, mankind reaction when I try to talk with somebody who doesn't understand me? Okay, I'm not talking to you anymore because you don't understand me. So that's why we have those frameworks, we have those skills, and sometimes the organization need to invest some kind of, training to be more open. So this is the one thing. The other thing, that people, of course, are busy, and who is the most busy person in the organization? Usually the business is most busy person. At least this is my personal experience. So rather business or the sales are quite, spending the most of the time in our customers, working with them, supporting them, and they don't have enough time to, for example, for weekly meeting, or just spend 1 week in the month just with the R&D and just sitting with them and talking. So this was always challenge for me, that people for the really working with the customer was very, very far from my R&D department. So it was a big again, challenge to have them in the meeting, in the room, and in the discussion. Facilitation, yeah, of course. So I already said that we have the people, and the people needs to be trained and needs to be open for discussion. And the facilitation is one of the critical things, because for me, from my experience, this is something that make decision. Either those workshop will be successful, and we define some kind of statement that will be later taken to the test and will be understandable, and will be fulfilling all definition of unambiguous language or not. So this was people. Technology. Of course, there are many frameworks that implementing this, but also from technological perspective, we need to think about the few aspects. Like, if we introducing the BDD, so it means that we introducing this in the whole organization. So it's also mean that even that that's some in the optimistic way, that we have the business that have time for us. So from the top to down, we have the old people that understand what is BDD, and would like to use this. So on pure technological level, we still have something like, okay, if we pick up framework for let's say project A, it means that those framework will stay in the project A, or if we should rather pick up a framework on the organizational level. And then if we figure out on the organizational level, the other project needs to implement in this, and this is against the agile, because the agile team, or the project team, should decide. We should give them ability to pick up the best framework which is for them. And again, then it needs to be clearly defined whether on organizational level, for example, we would like to use BDD, but then leave the decision to the project, or not, or we just make someone make decision. Okay, we invested in training so much, so we have to use this kind of solution. End of story. So this is definitely one of the things that needs to be addressed. Feature files. So this is the object, the artifacts that started appearing in our software ecosystem. So before this, we have the requirements in different formats. Sometimes it was in the Word, sometimes it was BPMN, sometimes it was kind of models. But the BA and the requirements has their own repository. Tester has their own repository of the test, and the code is usually in the different repository. Now, when we implemented BDD, there started appearing some kind of artifacts, which by definition should link all those. So eventually, the requirements should end with the feature files. Tester should take those feature files during the testing process, and the developers also should be aware of this, and should for example, if it's possible, use for those feature files for unit testing as well. So we have common artifact that in fact all the roles would like to take care of this. And the typical problem, because this is even it could be code, it could be in ambiguous language, or even it will simple English. Someone need to maintain this. If we allow the whole community, whole our team just to put the text there in the format they wish, even if we define the high level grammar of the format, but still allow them to do it, then we have big problem. And this is end up with like typical with the old source code maintenance problems, maintenance hell. So of course, this is something that needs to be addressed on the technological level and natural tendency. So yeah, if you allow the tester, okay, and figure out yet another case, yet another case, yet another case. So be aware that that from the simple sentence, which was easy, happy path requirements, the tester will generate a lot of other sentences. What is happening if, and what is the definition? So this is on the one hand something that we would like to do, and we got from the tester, but on the other hand, it again causing that it is much more specified. And the other, you already mentioned about the product organization, so project delivery stack. So sometimes it's this decision, we have one project in Java, second in C# or PHP or something else, and we need to make some kind of hard decision what we implementing on which level. And of course, important that whole team needs to feel the responsibility for this, which goes to us to our typical problems. That because usually the testers are the people that taking those feature files and validating, because this is part of our role. But in my career, it was usually test only for testers. Really, this is something that we would like to end up. And because of the again lack of the access to the business owners and the business strategy, we just usually in my career was that the tester was responsible for the maintain the feature files. There was problem with requirements because for the business analyst or UX designer they have their own format. So we end up with the tester design or doing those, creating those feature files, and later we using them again in the validation files. So this was the cost of implementing Gherkin, stuff like this. But this was very specific, and sometimes you might think, okay, maybe using that very strict approach is very too heavy. And for that cases, I recommend, for example, to look in the Gojko Adzic book specification, for example, which on the concept level, we are talking about the same thing, but without those, implementing the framework. And this is maybe something when you're, keep alone and you just want to use the good things from the concept, but unfortunately without the product owner or project managers. So I already mentioned the Gherkin. So this is the time when you can, if you haven't seen it, this is the example how the Gherkin looks like. And the Gherkin is something that Gaspar Nagy was proposed. And this is a fun fact that how the spec flow has been originated, that he liked the concept, he is using .NET, and he figured, oh, okay, I need something that it's working in the same. So he sit down and proposed this, and that's why spec flow, being originated. He's talking about this on his talk, so I recommend to Google him and listen his talk. So for .NET we have spec flow, for Java we have JBehave, and for Python we have a lot of Behave, Radish, and many more. So we see that on the technological level, that Gherkin is very popular, and the Gherkin allows us to to catch the snapshot from those unambiguous requirements and write in a certain syntax. Pros, again, reporting, because we already have the specified so requirements in the easy language syntax that can be read, can be even without the context too much to understand and to validate. So usually it's also really nice reporting, stuff like this. Also the people without the knowledge or without coding knowledge or stuff like this can work with this. So either the junior testers can understand, or either the people related to the business don't need to bother to reading the report from the, I don't know, unit test coverage or even the end-to-end test, but they just see the sentences like, I would like to have that story like this, and see, okay, this story is on the report and this green, so probably this is already implemented, so I can take it in demo to our customers. And again, from my perspective, we have one unexpected benefit that I implemented in our project, because it looks like that usually we have the backend, front end, DevOps, all those technology stacks and the areas has their own solutions, and having kind of level of abstraction, in that case Gherkin, allow me, for example, to connect them. So I was able to do certain action which was dedicated and easy to implement in the backend, and take them and use, for example, for front-end testing. The simplest example was that each current front-end framework in the Cypress, Playwright, something like this, are able to do API calls. So this is something that without opening the browser, allowed to do some quick preparation. But but before this is something that we need to at first figure out. And sometimes for different projects, maybe this is not everything can be done by those quickly API calls. And then having that kind of Gherkin abstract level allows us to, for example, to connect the different stack of the tools in the one scenario, which is again easy to understand on the business level perspective. Again, if we look again in the Gherkin format, when we have given when then, and we compare to different method or different approach, and if you try to understand on the abstraction level, then we can see that this is more or less, and not even more or less, this is exactly the same what is defined in the CTFL4, like collaborative user story. So again, we have as a role, I want to goal to accomplish so that I can result business value of the role. So we see that again. That's why I pushed and spent so much of your time trying to explain the ambiguous language, because either the Gherkin is kind of implementation of those ambiguous concept of the language, as collaborative user story. This is yet another stuff. But let's see. Let's stay a little bit longer with the Gherkin. So the risk and the stuff that I already mentioned, the maintenance. What do you think? Is it good or bad scenario? So according to documentation, this is very, very bad scenario. The good scenario should look like this. So this is refactor. So again, if we look on this, the concept is very nice. It allows us, give us the power, some level of the abstraction. The implementation is in different way, and whatever implementation we pick up, we end up with some kind of code. English, pure English, or some kind of syntax, but this is code that needs to be maintained and refactor. Maybe this is not the problem, but we'll see. Next step, for example, the feature file might look like this when we have the table, which is, in my opinion, one of the biggest benefits, because we can address very complex scenarios with many factors in the one feature file. Like we have certain actions, we have certain logic, and we just define in the table input, 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 output, output, and this is building that kind of scenario. We have in the one place the information snapshot of the whole system, how it becomes. But again, this is more complicated to maintain this. And using the implementation of the for example, the Gherkin in the Python, like Radish, and we have more and more options. So we can loop, we can the background scenarios. So we end up eventually with something which is getting more and more remind us that this is yet another coding language instead of the communication language. So there's more rules, there's more complexity because people already need something. And still, we have the challenges, problems to address, like for example, like to address negative scenario. So it's easy to write something when you should add your new iPhone to the shopping cart and go to proceed, then it should be there and you should pay for this. This is easy, but and this is simple scenario. But when you're trying to automate this and when you really start to thinking from the quality perspective, you start asking question. Okay, is that someone changes on the is it available? Do we have enough money? Do we have, do you want to extra stuff? And this simple scenario is getting more and more complex. There are more branches from this. So, and when you add the negative, even more. So the feature file, the simple phrases that we have in the very beginning, is being quickly more hard to understandable. And let's imagine what kind of framework requirements from that kind of feature file, because the framework needs to address and understand that all those sentences that we are proposed. So this is one. The dictionary. If we have more than one people writing feature files, the style of writing is different. So again, it needs to be reviewed like a code. Or if not, then we end up with the more or less very similar action defined in slightly different way. Doesn't matter English, you're like a national language or whatever. Definitely you have the options like you can say about certain activities, but not using it exactly the same way or change the order this way. And this is something that you need to remember when you define the phrases in the Gherkin. And again, we are more step by step, surprisingly going in the code. And this is something that was not surprise to other people. And there's even white papers made by the universities which doing analysis about those our DSL, so domain specific language, so ambiguous language. What is the life cycle of this solution? Is that any way how to do it in the proper way? And the conclusion from that kind of white paper is that that amount of the time that you spend on the maintenance, it's extremely growing, and it's really it's one of the biggest factor that to make decision that is that will be working for your solution or not. That's why we have results, for example, like this, that we have some people really like Gherkin approach and the BDD approach, and some like this guy, no, I'm not here anymore. Very quickly, I tried to, in my career many times. One of the latest approaches that we try to use the robot framework, which has the structure, showed us on those screens. There's nice reporting. As an example, we also have the syntax, define in a certain way. This was not like the sentence because here's the keywords, but on the concept level, we have more or less the same. We have the keyword that it hides certain of the actions. So from the keywords, you can build the whole the sentence or the whole the scenarios. And again, we have something like the tables, like you see 1 + 1, 2, 1 + 2. So we can, different formats about this. And again, even that I try to, not once, not twice, many times to implement the quickly and good in the BDD, we end up with the same, challenges and the problems. Like it's the logic, there's a problem with eventually we have, very time consuming, and our dictionary and the, complexity of our scenarios are being more and more. So what is the conclusion about all those stories and my lesson learned? So I would like that you remember and take with you that it's really important to pay your attention on the framework, and it's good that implementing will give us some kind of abstraction because it brings benefits, improve observability, and sometimes those automated stuff can allow you with certain other actions, like for operational. So again, shift right, but also you need to look on those abstraction level that it have the natural tendency to being yet another complexity language that needs to be implemented, and as a language needs to be really control in the very strict level as you're doing with your coding language. And unless you have real BDD. So again, having real BDD means that have all the robots in the same room which communicate, which understand and allow you define those language. This is much better, and then it's definitely worth to implement it. And needs to enforced by the other approach. So yeah, sometimes we have in the organization problems that we have maybe not enough engineers, and recently I'm observing the tendency that more visual testing is available from the shelf on the market. So, and usually for that kind of solution frameworks, implementing that kind of level of abstractions, or for let's assume the Gherkin, it's one of the type of the input that can be easily put in this tool, and the then tool is doing the test automation testing for us. So yeah, this is very quickly 40 minutes, so not quickly, but this topic is is really ongoing. Even a few days ago I have really nice discussion with the one of the program committee from the Georgian conference, which also I recommend to see to be there first of all, but also to listen to recording. So thank you for your attention. I hope that it was useful, and I hope that I address a little bit your concern about this, and I'm waiting for your questions if there is any. If not, then don't hesitate to contact me on the LinkedIn and we can talk about this. Thank you.
Seba, great presentation from you, and so extensive and informative. I'm so sorry, but we have unfortunately run out of time, so there is no opportunity for a question and answer session. But I'd like to just remind our viewers that we will be live the whole day today, on the hour, every hour, and to please tune in to our next sessions. And if you enjoyed Seba's presentation, please head over to our website and vote for him as our best presentation or best speaker position. And Seba, thank you so much. We look forward to having you take part in one of the next A4Q testing summits in the future.
Yes. Take part and give
Thank
the feedback.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.